What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Fantasy Alarm's first college football DFS live stream here, previewing this Week 1 slate. I got Pete Cole here with me. Pete, how you doing, man?
What's up, Dan? Doing well. Like we were saying,
Yeah.
it feels like it's week 3 of college football. It's day 3, but it sounds like we've been living and eating college football since Wednesday, but like 24/7. So
I
cool.
know,
It's a good
right?
part of the year.
Yeah, we had the Week 0 slate last Saturday, and then we had Wednesday or Thursday, Friday, and then today we got all day games. And you have the night playbook right up right now on dfsalarm.com. So go check that out to get lineups in for tonight's slate. I had the early afternoon main slate playbook, which goes live at noon Eastern, about an hour and a half from now. So definitely look at that while you're watching along, listening along with us to build some lineups. And we have some bets over at wageralarm.com that I put up. So if you're into that sort of thing, definitely look at those. And by the way, just a quick note, FanDuel has a combined slate. Pete, you and I have talked about this kind of being annoying with that, where you combine the early games and the night games. So just kind of look at both of our playbooks and combine, some of those plays. We try to put up some example lineups, but it's hard to for us to kind of do full research on a whole slate of games when there's games going on all day. So that's how we split it up. But obviously use both playbooks to kind of build those lineups. Well, Pete, let's before we start answering questions. And by the way, you're listening everywhere: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube right now. But go over to the CFB DFS Discord channel with us at Fantasy Alarm, DFS Alarm. And we're going to be answering some questions. If you guys have lineup questions, any questions about certain players, teams, we're going to be providing some injury updates here. Hopefully, as they come in, and just kind of, helping you guys make some winning lineups. But Pete, let's first, just you and I, if people are new to this sort of thing, or new to us, just a quick introduction on, how long we've been doing this college football thing.
Wow, seems like I was thinking about this earlier because college football went away for like 1 or 2 years, right? But what did it start like maybe 2015? But I mean, I've been doing DFS since the draft street days, and I guess I'm an old timer now. But I've been living it. I pretty much do it for a living now. Been writing it, talking about it, on various live streams, and so. But this is one of my funnest sports, actually. College hoops, college football. So with DFS, for some reason, I'm an MLB guy really at heart, but I think for me, DFS football, I think college football is my favorite, and we've been successful. It's fun, you get a good edge as long as you have the edge. You're up to date with the news. There's actually, I guess I'm saying there's an edge to have. So if you're paying attention, or you watch our live streams, or pay attention to the websites, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, and college sports, as everyone knows that's been playing it, is you got to be on top of this news because, an injury here and there could open up a lot of playing time for someone that's a lot cheaper or vice versa. I mean, the news is key, and we'll try to get you up to date on that, following along here. And by the way, we're going to be going for about a half hour here, but if we once we're off, we'll both be in the Discord chat, just kind of providing some more injury updates or lineup questions if you guys have any lingering ones there before lineup block. And for me myself, I've been doing this for Fantasy Alarm for, I guess, like you said, whenever it started up again in college, which was 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. I've been doing this DFS thing for them for since then, and I was always watching college football, big college football fan before that, and playing DFS and other sports. So, but yeah, college is definitely my thing for Fantasy Alarm, Wager Alarm, DFS Alarm, college basketball and college football. So, definitely follow us along all season because we'll be helping you win. But let's get into the slate here because I'm excited to talk about some of these guys. Just real quick before we dive into specific players, I want to talk, Pete, if there's any teams or, games that you're looking to target overall. I mean, so the Oklahoma Tulane game is the highest total on the board right now at 67 over under. Western Michigan is the second highest at 66 over under. Oregon, Fresno State, 64 total. And then Alabama, Miami at 61. Those are kind of the top four. And definitely all those offenses are places to look at. I mean, you're looking to stack any of those or looking immediately to one of those teams?
Well, there's really, honestly, I don't see too many game stacks. There's usually like one or two games you want to stack. I don't see it. I mean, there's a few teams, of course, that we like, like the Bamas. I actually like Kansas State a little bit. But there's probably more teams that we can actually cross off than, which actually, this is what we were talking earlier. This is what you need for a site this big. You got to be able to eliminate some teams and make it more manageable because you go out of your mind. But, we still have the Texases you can play. Mississippi State, of course, the air leach and all that. But I don't think there's really one game. Maybe even Bama, Miami. It's almost a 3-point spread. So there's not that many games. I really gonna say, let's look at that game. Indiana, Iowa, possibly, but I'm almost nixing some of that too, even though a lot of people are out Indiana. So yeah, it's kind of a weird slate. It seems like the first 2 days, like Thursday and Friday, there was like people that jumped right out, a nice core. Today is a little bit different to me. It seems like it's a little bit harder to build and come up. I had an easy time coming up with lineups for Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday showdown, but today's a little bit harder, I think.
The Thursday had that Boise UCF game that was fun to stack, but this one definitely doesn't have one where you're looking at both offenses. Right. Yeah, I mean I guess maybe the Bama Miami is the one, but because Miami's probably gonna be trailing, so like there's you could get some De'Aaron King in there, you could get one of his receivers, thinking that they're gonna be throwing a lot, and Alabama obviously has everyone that we want that we'll go through shortly here, but yeah, the Michigan and Oklahoma offenses, and even Oregon at that too. And we have some big favorites on this slate. Cincinnati's a big favorite. As I mentioned, Oregon, they're 20-point favorites. Michigan is about 17-point favorites. Oklahoma,
Iowa
30.
State, right?
Yeah, Iowa State. So like all these offenses, on a normal slate, we definitely want, and if it's Iowa State playing Oklahoma, like that's a game you can stack. But they're both playing easy opponents. And the blowout factor is something we definitely have to take into a factor for us, just because, a guy, for Iowa State, a guy like Breece Hall, I mean, he's the best DFS running back in college, but, maybe he gets 100 yards and a touchdown and then gets, kind of sat and rested because they don't need him if they're winning by 3 touchdowns by then. So,
that's a decision of the day too. The Hall decision.
It's a tough one, and we can get into that here. So let's just go right there. I mean, Breece Hall, like, what are you doing with him in cash or GPP? I mean, I'll tell you right now, I'm fading him in cash because he's too expensive, and these there's higher priced quarterbacks that I'd rather have in cash. So I'm fading him in cash. But I mean, what are you doing?
Yeah, I had this discussion last night, and with some other people when the week started, I was all over Breece Hall. I thought he was going to be a core play. And then the more I thought about it, but I'm going back because I was going back and forth between him and Letty. I'm not even sure if even Letty's going to be my main lineup now. But that's another game, actually, West Virginia, Maryland. That may be possible, stackable. But back to Breece Hall. The one thing is I know they're trying to get him the Heisman. So, they may try to get some numbers out of him. It's a good day to get numbers. I mean, he's going to get there. He's going to get his touches. But I don't think he's going to go off. We're not going to see a huge day from him. I think Letty Brown on the West Virginia side has probably a softer way to get 25 points. So Breece at 9K probably is more of a GPP play. As we don't know what's going to happen. This game could be over really, really quick. So I think it's a chance you can't take in cash, even though he probably is a safe play. He's going to get his numbers, but I still think it's other ways to go. There's too many other good running backs, I think, to take that chance. That are going to play all 4 quarters.
Yeah, and obviously there's always the chance that Breece Hall is, the guy that's scoring all the touchdowns for Iowa State to get them that big lead. I mean, that's obviously always a possibility, but there's also, I mean, this team has Brock Purdy and some good receivers and Charlie Kohler. Charlie Kohler's the tight end, yeah. So they can easily be throwing for 3 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden Breece Hall is getting rested, and in the second half. So it's a little scary for me.
Agree.
And Letty Brown, yeah. So that game, Maryland, West Virginia, at a 57 over under right now. West Virginia only 3-point favorites. So it's going to be a back and forth, offensive battle, I think. And Maryland's defense was terrible last year. So I think that, Letty Brown, maybe they're improved a little bit, but Letty Brown's definitely a good target there. I'm looking a little lower in the running back pool, I think, for like cash, but Letty Brown could easily outscore Breece Hall if we're going head to head there.
And he's 1K cheaper. So
exactly.
To me, that makes a decision right there. I mean, I think Letty may, at the end of the day, may be my favorite running back of the slate. He may not be in my main lineup, but
Gotcha.
It seems like he's been around. It seems like he's been around forever. Yeah. Can Letty Brown be frustrating? Yeah. I mean, he's been frustrating very much over the years, but I think he's the safest play. He should easily get 25 fantasy points. I'm thinking he gets the value, and plus he's involved a little bit in the passing game. So
yeah,
we know he's established. He's going to play, and Maryland is not exactly. They should be able to run at will against Maryland. So once again, like you said, there's also some other cheaper plays we could be looking at running back too. And we're talking main cash lineups, but I think letting it the day is probably the best play. But we can go cheaper. I mean, we talk, the Vaughns and the Robinsons and stuff. So I mean, this is kind of a crazy slate. There's guys I like, but they did not even have them on my main lineup.
Yeah, so I want to get into the Robinsons right now. So we got Bijan Robinson from Texas, and then Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama. Those are two of, if you read the playbook or if you're over there now, those are two of the names I highlighted there. I mean, so Texas is working in a new quarterback, Hudson Card, and there's reports that they're going to use a second quarterback behind him anyway. So I think the Texas offense might lean on the run more in this game. It's actually a tougher matchup than you'd think against Louisiana Lafayette. So and Texas only 8-point favorites right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're going to lean on the run and probably feed Bijan Robinson. And last year, at the end of the year, he really came on and became like their go-to lead back, had some big yardage totals and touchdowns, was involved in the passing game too. And he's, for the price, I just really like that pricing on him, knowing he's probably going to get the volume in this game. I mean, he's been their clear lead back, or last year it was kind of, Texas' backfield was a little uncertain for most of the year until Robinson kind of took it and ran. So I do. I mean, what are your thoughts about Bijan Robinson?
Bijan is probably my favorite play of the day. Actually,
there you go. Okay,
you said it. You said it all. Where you got the freshman the new quarterback. This is his team now. I think they're going to ride him all game, and I think that this whole gameplay is going to benefit Robinson over Card. I mean, he's going against some really good competition in Big 12. And I was just looking, he had games last year, 10 of 183, 9 of 172, 12 of 113. I mean, he's the man. They're going to feed him. I said, especially with the freshman there. This is his team. At a 7-4, he's the play. And Steve Sarkisian is notorious. He features his running backs. So
yes. Yeah,
he's a running back guy. I saw it. That was eight full seasons as he's primary running back. His average 266, 1438, 14 touchdowns. So this is Bijan's team. This is his time to shine. He's, to me, especially at that price of 7-4, he's the top running back that's like point per dollar wise.
Yeah, I agree, honestly, because we saw so you mentioned Sark and Steve Sarkisian has said that he wants Robinson to get 20 to 30 touches at least per game, which is, rushing and receiving. But the rushing, he's probably going to have at least 20 carries in this game. Last year he had a high rushing average at the end of the year when he was getting those carries. And I just think he's going to easily go for 100 yards and probably multiple scores in this if they're leaning on him, especially down in the red zone. Why not lean on him instead of taking the risk with a freshman quarterback, as you mentioned, or the backup if it's him in, and possibly turning it over in the red zone. So I just think they're going to lean on him, and
you will never see him at this price again at 7-4. I think this is
No,
probably the lowest we're ever going to see him again.
you're probably right. Yeah. Yep. And that game, so that game against Louisiana, it's a tough matchup, but it's still a 58 total there. So it's gonna be more high scoring than people might think, I guess,
Definitely.
because Texas is coming off a weird season and have new quarterback and everything, but this offense is gonna be good with Sark coming over. I want to get into Alabama right now, before we take any questions, because Alabama, they're going against Miami here, but they have brand new players, brand new names across the whole offense. We got Bryce Young at quarterback, 8,900 on DraftKings. Running back, we mentioned Bijan Robinson Jr., 6,500. And then the receiving core, so no more Jalen Waddle, no more Devontae Smith. And, John Mechie is the top price guy. We'll see if he ends up being a favorite target for Bryce Young. Last year, he kind of played third fiddle to Smith and Waddle. He's at 8,100, which is hefty. But then, we got some cheaper guys that if you just want some cheap exposure to Alabama, I love these guys. Jameson Williams earned a starting role for that Alabama receiving core, transfer from Ohio State. He's only 5,200. And then Jojo Earl is another name I highlighted in the playbook, 4,000 on DraftKings. He's going to be, he's co-starters with Slade Bolden, but a true freshman just earned, a co-starting role in that receiving core right off the bat. And he's one of their returners. He's one of their top, speed guys, playmakers, drawing comparisons to Jalen Waddle actually from coaches. So I like some of these cheaper guys, and I mentioned Bijan Robinson Jr. I love him. Tough to pay the price for John Mechie and Bryce Young, in my opinion. But I mean, what are you doing with these guys? Maybe that game against Miami is close enough where we see these Alabama guys for pretty much the whole game.
I think you will.
Yeah.
I'm a big Miami fan, and I want to see it that way. I'm a King guy, but Jameson Williams is probably my favorite receiver point per dollar. I don't think there's that much of a difference between him and John Mechie, honestly.
Yeah.
In the room, I think he said 5'2". This kid's got the potential to be an elite playmaker. I'm seeing all kinds of tweets here where the teammates, the coaches are praising the guy. I know he's got the pedigree coming from Ohio State. I'm looking. He's got high 4.3, low 4.4 numbers in the 40, and then the price. So, and if the defense is focusing on Mechie, we got Jameson Williams sitting there at 5'2". So Williams is my favorite play. Robinson, I'm going back and forth to Robinson too. So if we know that, he's going to be the man, the RB1 that's going to get all the burn today, which I'm assuming he is, and I guess he is going to be a good price. He's going to be a good play at that price. He's going to score. I'm assuming he's going to score at least once, probably twice. So 6'5" is kind of borderline to me, whether that's main lineup worthy or not. I'm out. Bryce Young, same thing. I hate playing somebody in their first game, and we saw a lot of people playing Stroud the other night. What's Young? 8-9. That's kind of high too.
Yeah, that's a lot.
The kids, it's Alabama. We do know, he's a big recruit coming out of high school. He can run. Probably more GBP play to me was that price, but I'm all on Jameson Williams. We do see that. And one thing is, Jaleel Billingsley is like way down the depth chart, so he's in a doghouse. I've seen a bunch of notes that he could be. I guess he refused to take the vaccination or something, so he's in the coach's doghouse. So Billingsley, if anybody's planning on playing Billingsley, I wouldn't. So, which actually makes you like Williams better. Slade Bolden, I don't think is a game breaker. I like your call actually. And I've heard that I heard that the other day too. I like your call on Jojo Earl. I think Jojo Earl's a sneaky play too, especially in GPPs.
Yeah, 4K.
That's a good call.
I honestly think 4K might be the lowest we see him all year. If he, this game, if he has one or two touchdowns,
that's what it takes, right?
Yeah, and he's smashed value. Obviously it's risky. He's a co-star, as I mentioned, with Slade Bolden in the slot. Slade Bolden, he played last year. He didn't do too much.
Didn't do much, exactly.
Yeah. I agree. So, and granted, he didn't have the complete opportunity because Smith and Waddle, but Waddle was hurt and he still didn't even really, take a step forward there. And I think it's notable that Jojo Earl is earned a co-starter role alongside him. So, but yeah, as you mentioned, what's that?
And I didn't mean to change the gears, but I guess in the same game, I was thinking, I'm looking at Derek King's price.
Yeah, let's go to Miami here.
I'm a Miami fanboy, but King's only 7-4, and you're looking at Bryce Young is 8-9. It's $1,500 difference. Derek King didn't just, is he healthy? Everything I'm reading that he is, he's back.
Yeah,
We know what we're getting. To me, I still think King is tempting to use at that price. I don't think Bama can totally keep him in check. I don't think they can totally stop him. He's too good. He's played against great teams. We saw what he did last year. That averaged 17 fantasy points a game. There was only one game he was below 22 fantasy points. And he's getting a lot of his weapons back, So like guys like Mike Harley, even guys Charleston Rambo this year. So I like King in this game, especially if there's going to be points scored. And I think, and maybe once again, because I'm a Miami guy, I think it's going to be closer than a 19.5 spread I'm seeing. So I would take Miami on this.
I like that. Yeah, and going back to what we were talking about earlier is game stacking. This could be a situation where if you wanted to play Bryce Young and Derek King in the same lineup, put King at the super flex. I think that's definitely an option you can do. And then the receivers. So if you think Miami's gonna be trailing or keeping it close, they're gonna score points. This is gonna be a good game to watch. They're
gonna be playing from behind, right? So
yeah, if they're gonna be playing from behind. Yeah, so which of these receivers do you like as the best kind of pairing with King? Mike Harley is the top guy there, but they got Charleston Rambo coming over from Oklahoma. A guy that is a lot cheaper than Harley if you were going that route. But a couple of the other guys, Mark Pope, Will Mallory, any of these guys you definitely want?
You got to like the Rambo price. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff. It might be coach speak about Rambo, though. He spent time with a bunch of former Hurricanes this summer. Spent time with them. They're all saying the right things. But once again, if Rambo couldn't do it in Oklahoma, what makes you think he's going to do it with Derek King in Miami? But he's a talent, so he could GBP play. He could definitely be a breakout. I like Harley. 6.6 I was originally thought that was kind of low for Harley, but I guess it is kind of high. We've seen guys like Pope and Mallory have good games. If I can, but I still think it's going to be Harley if anybody is going to score a couple of touchdowns. So they're playing from behind. He should be able to get a couple spots. He had 800 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns last season. So I think he should even have a better year this year with King getting the ball. So I think Harley's still to play. If you can't get to him, why not take a chance on Rambo? GBP only, of course. And I think this is probably the closest game you can get to a game stack on this slate, really.
Yeah. And another cheap guy is Keyshawn Smith. He's earned a starting role in that receiving core as kind of the third guy, I guess. But we'll see. He played last year and didn't do too much. So we'll see how much burn he gets compared to some of the other guys. But yeah, I like. I definitely like Rambo for the price, I guess, over Harley. But Harley in GPPs, he could easily score twice and have 100, more than 100 receiving yards. So I don't mind that. We mentioned earlier about just going through some of the top guys, top positions, or guys at each position that we want. Let's start at quarterback. So we went through a couple of these guys, but we got Spencer Rattler, we got Desmond Ridder, Bryce Young as the top 3. Out of those 3, which way are you leaning in cash or GPP?
If I got to pick the 3, it's going to be Rattler. He's probably the safest play on the board. Can you get up to that price though at 9.7? He's going to be number 1 pick probably next year, right? This Tulane secondary is bad. So I'm looking up with Winkler and Riley. They're top 5 YP every single year, and when you got guys like Marvin Mims and Mike Woods, and some of these guys. So Rattler's a play, but can you get to him in cash? I'm thinking he's probably gonna be being 20-25% owned. I would rather go down cheaper. But I think Rattler is the play between those top guys just because of his experience. What's Ridder? $500 cheaper?
I'll tell you right now, I'm going Ritter over
I
Rattler
think,
for
the more I'm looking at it too, I think.
The whole we talked about earlier, but the whole aspect of Oklahoma playing, they're 32-point favorites over Tulane. I mean, I'm very much scared off. I mean, maybe it's the wrong decision, but I'm very much scared off about him just, maybe he throws for 4 or 5 touchdowns to get to that number, but I think that they kind of take their foot off the gas, with the, in the second half where it's like, why do they care about, beating Tulane by so much when they're, they might still win by 35, but it's like, at the end of the day, how much of that is Rattler throwing the ball,
Agree.
So
they actually did this new motto of "Let it fly." That's what they're saying in all the camp. That's their motto of the camp. But I like Jerome Ford too. Can you play Ritter and Ford together? Ritter's gonna, he's gonna get you his touchdown. So I probably will end up like a Ritter in my main lineup with somebody cheaper. Definitely, and you're right. I definitely like him over Rattler. I think Ritter is the play. He's gonna be lower owned. Between Rattler and Young, he's going to be the lower owned out of the three of them, like always. I mean, he really never gets the respect. So, I mean, I only see him like 12% owned, probably.
Yeah, I think Ritter. I mean, I think out of the three, Bryce Young. I mean, I was gonna say he's gonna be the least popular of those three, but I feel like people might be like, oh, it's Alabama.
Yep.
We've heard so much about Bryce Young already. He's a Heisman contender. So he might just gain ownership from that. Kind of like 2 nights ago when C.J. Stroud was playing. I mean, people were probably just like, "Oh, it's Ohio State's next quarterback. Like I'm gonna play him." So the casual fan might just lock him in and stack up Bama, which is, I mean, it's never a bad idea, but we're trying to find other ways to go here, I guess. But so you mentioned Jerome Ford. Let's just talk there real quick. I mean, you like Ford as one of the top running backs here. Do you like him over Bijan Robinson for 400 less on DraftKings?
I may end up going the Ford way. We've seen last year. I mean, everything I'm seeing is you're going to see a huge season from him. I mean, you're seeing over 200 carries. Remember, there's no more Gerald Dokes here. So he's the RB1. Nobody's going to threaten him. And we saw what he did last year. I mean, against some really good offenses. I can't remember the one game he had, the huge game. I'm just drawing a blank. But
what is it late? I'm looking at his game log here. I mean, late in the season. So he played Memphis and he had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game.
It must have been. I remember it was like during the week. It was a weeknight game, but
it might have been that one. Yeah, against Memphis. They probably put it on a Thursday or Friday.
I was a Ford guy last year. But once again, he's not cheap. Deuce. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think Deuce is the play. I'll change them again, but I think Deuce is the play. I think Deuce Vaughn. Because everybody's saying he's going to get all the touch, I think, and especially Deuce's price. But I don't know, with Robinson being 6'3", and Ford's another $700, it probably is Robinson. Now I'm thinking about it. Here I'm changing my mind here late in the day. I hate doing that.
I mean, they could both go for over 100 and multiple touchdowns. So it's if you think you could save 400 and make a better lineup with that, with Ford and not Robinson, I mean, go for it. I mean, on the same note, if you're really higher on Brian Robinson Jr. for 500 less than Ford, I mean, these are all like either ors. I mean, you could stack, You can get 3 of those in the same lineup with some cheaper wide receivers for sure. It's definitely a decision. I think I lean the Robinsons over Ford.
Yeah, you're right. I think you are. The more we're talking about it, those two and Deuce, I think are my top 3. Because I'm just a Deuce guy also. I think Deuce is going to get, they're talking going to give him 25 touches.
So Deuce Vaughn is from Kansas State, right?
Yep. And
so yeah, lay that out for us.
I mean, here's a guy last year. I mean, this guy is just He's just dynamic. He has 642 yards rushing, 5.2 yards per carry, 25 catches, 434 yards. But he did, kickoff returns. And the whole problem is he's small. He's 5'6". He's like 170, 173. Can you do it over 12 games? And I don't care about that. All we're worried about is today. Chris Kymlin, the coach, is saying we're going to give him 25 touches is the optimum number. If you can get, he only averaged 15.5 last year. If you can get 25 touches out of Deuce Vaughn, you can have a huge game out of him. So to me, Vaughn's a core play. Vaughn and Bijan, they're my top two. So,
okay.
And I'll have Ford in some lineups because I think without Dokes this year, bringing down his deck, I think he's have a good year. But it really is. I think Vaughn and Bijan are my top two. And there is one other running back that just popped up. I think is kind of a sneaky play. Is the kid from Maryland.
Fleet Davis?
Yeah, Fleet Davis. I think he may be a sneaky play here. Now we saw Jake Funk had a really good season last year. Funk actually averaged 21 fantasy points a game. Now Fleet Davis is stepping in that number one role, and he's talented. And he had some issues. He had some injuries. I think some off-field issues. But he's a clear number one this year, and he's a good receiver out of the backfield. Where Funk actually did a really good job at that last year. And they have, I think they have a good offensive line. I mean, West Virginia's no pushover, but I think a sneaky play is this Fleet Davis. What's his price? I don't have his price in front of me now.
5,800 on DraftKings.
So a little high. I'm not saying use him in your main lineup. If you're multi-entry, make it 2 or 3 lineups. I think that may be what he sneaky plays a day. His same job of Jake Funk, and I was a big Funk guy last year. I won a lot of money using Funk.
Yeah, the Maryland offense was sneaky good last year from a DFS perspective. You got Talia Tagovailoa. He's interesting in this game, 7,200. Their receivers had some good games last year. Some of them, I don't know, Dante Demas Jr. and Raheem Jarrett are a little too expensive for me, but Jayshon Jones is only 3,900, and he could easily pop. But yeah, the Fleet Davis call is a good one. I mean, I'm a little scared off from just them facing this West Virginia rush defense that was good last year. So I'm just a little wary. I think maybe they throw it more in this game. Especially it's noted that they are 3-point underdogs at home, which is weird because I thought. Just being at home, home opener, but obviously Vegas says, West Virginia is a better team, flat out. And if this was vice versa, Maryland would be probably 10-point underdogs, maybe if it was at West Virginia. So,
right.
Which is an interesting just kind of flip, if Maryland's trailing in this, maybe they're throwing it more. But like we said, it's going to be a back and forth battle, and Maryland could easily have the lead and win this outright. So, they might lean on Fleet Davis for sure in that. So I don't mind that call. Going through just a couple more cheap quarterbacks here. I mean, besides De'Aaron King, what are the other cheaper guys you're looking at for a super flex option? I mean, I can give you a couple too, but I'm wondering which way or other ways you're going.
2 guys. I'm looking at Skyler Thompson for Kansas State.
Okay.
I got 2.
You're high in the
State
Kansas State offense.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because where it's coming from, and it's only those 2 guys. He's got no receivers.
True. Yep.
We saw what Thompson did last year. He got hurt against Texas Tech, but he had that huge game. The huge game before that, when he in Norman, in Oklahoma, and it was like his coming out party, and then he gets hurt against Texas Tech. So he's got a lot of potential in that arm. He's got a strong running game. The Oklahoma game, he put up 40 DK points. So I like Thompson. Stanford's defense has been MIA before. I don't think it's a great defense, so it's gonna be better this year. So I like Thompson. I like that price. Especially that's one of my favorite parts of him. That price. The price is only 6.6. So he's like my favorite down there. And then maybe as a sneaky play is Austin Kendall from Tech. Mainly because he's only 5'1". He's getting a start against Mississippi State. Mississippi State defense is not going to scare anybody. So he may have an opportunity, throw a few yards, get a couple touchdowns, and a 5-1 is not going to take much to get value. And if you're a Breece Hall guy, it gets you like a Breece Hall in your lineup. So
Yeah,
Kendall's I just think he's kind of a sneaky play GBP. And I'm not saying use him in your cash lineup, but Kendall's I like him down there. But mainly I like Skyler Thompson, and I might pair Thompson up with one of the main quarterbacks. We're talking about like a Ritter Thompson duo. So I'm going to end up doing.
Yeah, that price on Thompson's really nice for cash superflex for sure. Yeah. And like you mentioned, he's going to be doing the rushing and has a floor that way. So I was initially scared off, and maybe that I'm talking to you, I'm looking more at it, but I was initially scared off of the Stanford-Kansas State game just because it was a lower total. I feel like Stanford's gonna be better this year. I mean, they were kind of disappointing last year. I mean,
they were definitely.
I have to believe that they're better. I mean, I know it's at Kansas State, so that helps. And Thompson's fully back healthy, and we know he's, as you mentioned, him and Vaughn are going to be the headliners for this offense. So it's, and by the way, between the two,
DFS wise.
Yeah, you could just stack the two, right, in the same lineup.
Yep, definitely. And you can actually, and then you can stack Austin Jones, who's a workhorse running back for Stanford, and you got a nice little game stack. I mean, Austin Jones is a main lineup type player. I mean, he really is. I mean, he's got the numbers. He's a workhorse. So there's three guys. There's actually three guys in that game where you can get all the production. So you don't have receivers anyway. You don't have to worry about it. You got Skyler was a dual threat. So I like those three guys in that game.
Yeah, and by the way, Dirty Dangles on our Discord just asked us about Austin Kendall. Maybe he's a second or two behind. You mentioned him, but just to go a little bit more in depth on him, I mean, West Virginia transfer. This Mississippi State defense was really shaky last year. So, I mean, and we know, so Mississippi State is 23-point favorites, I think they are. So it's. Yeah, 23-point favorites, 53 is the total, and we're probably going to see Louisiana Tech just trailing for much of this game, where Kendall is going to be airing it out.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, so I don't mind that call at all. And that could be a game where you even take some pieces from Mississippi State, and we can get into them for a second here, just because they're an offense it's a Mike Leach offense. They're going to be passing it a ton. Either to the running backs or the receivers. It's tough to pinpoint which exactly those players will be, as we learned last year. But maybe there was some clarity on this, because you mentioned earlier you heard some rumblings about a possible suspension here, right?
Yeah, and I was trying to see if I can see anything of it lately, but Malik Heath may be getting suspended. But he had to roll in that brawl with Tulsa, and all the Tulsa players got suspended. I
remember that game. Jeez.
Yep. So I'm assuming Heaton gets suspended also. So it's a mess of receivers. I mean, they're all cheap. Great CBP plays. You probably want a piece of this. I just don't know where to go. But I'm thinking if Heath is out, you got Makai Polk, who can get all the targets on the outside. He's only 3,900. So he would be the man that would be replacing Malik Heath if Heath gets suspended. So Polk is a sneaky play. But there's so many ways. I mean, we were talking about Jaden Walley earlier. I know it was all the talk, but Jaden Walley may not even be starting. But I still think Walley is going to get a piece of it, but it's expensive. You can always use Austin Williams in a slot. There's so many ways to go here with these guys. I'm not even sure who's the safest way to go. And I don't think there isn't anybody safe on this Mississippi State really with these receivers. There really isn't.
No, there really isn't. One guy I wrote up in the playbook was Jameer Calvin.
Yep.
He comes over from Washington State, transfer. He played in this Leach offense while at Washington State for 2 years. Last year he was, he didn't do too much, and it was kind of a weird year for Washington State with a bunch of canceled games and everything. I do think that he, having familiarity in this offense, and he's earned a starting role, starting at the H receiver. They have 4 starting receivers, this offense does, so it's kind of tough to pinpoint. But yeah, he's already earned a starting role. I just feel like he might end up being a kind of a PPR safe avenue in this offense. And we have to mention, obviously, so the quarterback situation is very much up in the air. They got co-starters Will Rogers and Chance Loveridge. Rogers is going to get the start, but who knows if when he's pulled, we saw last year that Leach wasn't shy about pulling his quarterback and putting in a different guy. So if he's not getting it done, say this offense starts out slow, we could easily see Loveridge in the game, and then he might favor a different receiver than Rogers did. So it's really hard to get a view on this.
Remember last year, Costello, game one, he was a darling of DFS football, game one. And after that, it was all over. I like to call him and call it out because he is in the other slot position. I think he's probably would be one of the better plays, especially at his price. So he would probably be where I would end up leaning because of his price. And he knows Leach. He played with Leach at Washington State. And then I would probably lean toward a guy like Polk, especially if he's suspended, because what I'm seeing, everything I'm seeing now, he's from Cal. He was one of the best players in camp. So he's going to get peppered with targets if Heath is out. And everything I'm seeing looks like Heath may be out. So we want to monitor that one.
Yeah, definitely something to monitor. Let's just stick on receivers before we wrap up here. I mean, any other these receivers, high priced, mid tier, cheaper that you're definitely looking at? I'll throw out a couple of cheaper guys that I'm looking at. One is Jaden Hazelwood from Oklahoma. Yep. We talked about Oklahoma's offense earlier. So Theo Weiss is hurt and he's out for this game. Him and Hazelwood were co-starters at one of the receiver spots for Oklahoma. And Hazelwood's, now presumably to get that bump up in targets. He didn't do much at all last year, so it's a little worrisome, and that's why his price is so cheap right now. But he could easily, pop off for 100 yards and a score here. And he's only 4,500 in DraftKings, so he's one guy I'm looking at. And then, the Western Michigan offense is one I'm interested in here, and I'm interested to hear your takes on this. Is Caleb Elby, the quarterback, is cheap enough at 7,300, and then Sky Moore and Jalen Hall both under 6K. This offense is gonna be trailing against Michigan, we presume, and they are 17-point underdogs against Michigan's here, and the total is massive. It's at 65, one of the highest on the slate. So we talked about some earlier offenses that are going to be trailing and maybe throwing more. Western Michigan is one of those for me, and we have guys that have proven that they have a connection over the last couple of years in LB, Hall, and Moore. Thoughts on those guys?
Yeah, so I think that I still think that number is a little high. That 66.5, and that's the only thing that's keep me back on that.
Yeah. But, you mentioned that because I had an earlier number in here in our rundown, so it was 66.5. It's now fallen all the way down to 65.5, and so I'm looking at a different sports book that has 65. So people are betting that down. Actually,
it's probably more like it. So
yeah.
Ellaby, he's not horrible. He can run. He can throw a little bit. Don't mind him. Love Sky Moore. Used Sky Moore. Got burned by Sky Moore a bit last year, but then still used him. He averaged almost 19 fantasy points a game I had here. So he's in play. Jalen Hall, I think, is your wild card here. Now he had 12 catches last year and 7 of them for touchdowns. So this is a big play,
and he scored in every single game.
Boomer bust, 5'5", 12 catches for 323 and 7 touchdowns. So if you're playing GBPs, I would, it'd be pretty cool actually to get an LB. I'd probably play Hall as a GBP, put a boom and bust. Moore's probably the safer play, but that is interesting. This game and Westford. I don't. Can you game stack it? Probably not. Western Michigan does. A good offense, but a bad defense. So Ronnie Bell. That's not a bad price when you're looking at a 40-point implied for them on the other side. But yeah, GBPs to me only like Hall and guys like Sky Moore definitely. And they're gonna be low owned. They're gonna be definitely low owned.
Yeah. Shout out to Dirty Dangles in the Discord here. He's saying So he says he's a Michigan fan, but he said Michigan usually dominates weaker opponents defensively. They fall apart when they play good teams. I wouldn't touch WMU, Western Michigan.
There you go.
I mean, yeah. So maybe you're in GPPs. It could be good, if they go for a touchdown or two, one of these receivers. But yeah, maybe playing like LB or Sky Moore and Cash is a little risky. For sure. Guru to you on Discord saying LB or King. So that's their King is 7,400, LB 7,300 on DraftKings.
King.
Yeah, I would go King all day if you're comparing those two.
Yeah, definitely King.
Especially talking to you more because you're a Miami fan. You're higher on this team. I thought Miami fans would be a little down on this team this year, but I'm glad to hear you're high on them.
And most of them a King guy, but it honestly comes down to how is King back? Is he healthy? Is he put back together? I think I'm reading he is. We'll find out. You couldn't ask for a better game than Bam would have tested out. So
I know we're gonna get real quick on that. We're gonna get an early answer on that. Like if early in the game he's just tearing it up and juking guys, then all right, then he's gonna smash.
Yep, and then he's gonna be 9-5 next week. So
exactly, yeah.
This may be cheap as see King too at 7-4.
Yeah,
and there's gonna be weeks for it's Bam. There's gonna be weeks that we're gonna be talking about Derek King as a top play, of course.
For sure.
It's Bam this week, so it's a tough game.
He's gonna play some terrible ACC opponents. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We saw happen yesterday, right, with North Carolina game.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to forget. There's two receivers I like, and they just jumped in my brain. They almost went away. It's just as cheapies. The kid from Oregon and Troy Franklin, a 3K.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's not a bad play.
I almost wrote about him in the playbook. I mentioned him in like others considered, but he's a guy that I definitely took notice as a possibility. He's a true freshman, earned a starting role right away.
Big recruit. So, and he said he's starting. So I think he's a decent play. And then on the other side, DJ Matthews from Indiana. He's only 3.6. I think DJ Matthews is a sneaky play. I mean, the focus is going to be on Freifogel for Indiana, but you got DJ Matthews in the slot there, and he's from Florida State. He's only 3.6, and he's going to get a bunch of targets there. And pretty much every year, whoever's in that slot is going to get 100 targets. So I think he's a great value play also, especially for like DraftKings. We're using PPR. So that's probably one of my favorite sneaky plays also. I think that's
I don't mind that.
Jordan Whittington.
Yeah, Whittington. I also like from that Texas team, Xavier Worthy. Was also a true freshman receiver, earned a starting role right away, was a top recruit, and flipped from, I think, Michigan, where he flipped to Texas. And he's gonna be, so we talked about the Texas offense having a new quarterback and possibly playing two quarterbacks in this game. Hudson Card is the freshman that's the top talent, and we presume he's just going to be the starter. But if he struggles, we could see someone else in there. I just don't know how much they're going to be passing in this game. The offense has, with Ellinger, we knew, all right, he has his guys that he likes. And this offense now has a couple new names in it, with Worthy being one of them. So, we could see him become a favorite target for Hudson Card. Or it's, Hudson Card leans on the guys that have been there that are more experienced. So it's really a toss up for me. I like that in GPPs though, Worthy and or Whittington, they're pretty cheap. One other cheap guy I mentioned, we're mentioning some cheap guys. So the Oregon Fresno game, I mean, Oregon's good and all that. Their defense is legit, but Fresno's gonna be another team that's gonna be trailing in this game for sure. Yep. And we just saw them have a dominant performance last week against an easy opponent. But this offense, this passing game is kind of good. I'm not paying up for Jalen Cropper, but a cheap guy is Josh Kelly. He's a starting receiver for Fresno. He's 3,300.
Forever.
Yeah, he's been around. He's one of their guys, and he's I think the start last week we saw a bunch of different receivers go in there for against UConn in the blowout win, but this game, all the starters are going to be in there for the whole game, and
Yep.
Josh Kelly's one of those guys. So, for him being 3,300, that's so cheap to me.
That's a nice call, and even brings you to. I mean, yeah, 6,100 is expensive. I mean, but for GPPs, it even takes you to Cropper. I mean, he was last week.
Yeah.
He had beside the 86-yard touchdown. That's all, but they didn't need him after that. And Cropper is good, and Fresno State is good. So I really think that this may be the. I'm glad you brought that up. This may be the surprise team of the day, point wise or DFS wise. And I mean, you do know where the Cropper is that clean, clear cut, target leader. He's going to get the points. But Kelly, I like Kelly. I actually played him last week and all that. But Fresno State they're going to put points up, and we know where they're going to go to. It's going to go to Cropper and Kelly. I think it's Wheatball, whatever, too, something like that. But Kelly's not a bad call, also, especially if you're making more than one lineup.
Yeah, so that game has a 64 total. Oregon is 20-point favorites currently. And we didn't really touch more on the Oregon offense at all today, but Anthony Brown is interesting at 8,300, maybe a little expensive for my taste. Verdell and Dye though for Oregon in that backfield, they're co-starters,
Yeah.
And last year we saw them split work. Verdell was battling some injuries, and he's missed practice time a little this preseason. So I think Dye is a little interesting, especially if they're up and they're running the ball late. They might just kind of let Dye take on more carries there. It's a little risky because we just don't. It's the same thing with any of these big favorites. Michigan, Oklahoma. We just don't know. Iowa State. We don't know how they're going to score the points, obviously, and there's the risk that they don't score much DFS-wise, and then they're getting rested in the second half. So it's always something you have to bake in here. But yeah, and then the receivers. So you mentioned Franklin, but the Oregon receivers are really hard to trust. I mean, especially at their prices. Jalen Redd is a co-starter with Micah Pittman, I think, and then we just don't know where Anthony Brown's going to go with the ball. He could have favorite receivers right off the bat, and then I think Redd and Johnny Johnson are too expensive to kind of trust there.
Yeah, and then Brown, quick. It seems like you either like Brown or you don't. And I'm not huge on Brown, but you do. Joe Moorhead knows how to work with dual threat quarterbacks, so you got to trust that. And so.
I like the dual threat with Brown.
But, exactly. I think he may surprise people. There's either two schools. You don't think he's going to do anything, and by 3 or 4 games, he's not even going to be starting, or he's going to, I do trust Moorhead. I think he's going to make this kid a decent dual threat. So I'm not on him really today. But and the whole Verdell thing, I think I like the Verdell price at $6K, but it seems like the staff likes Dye, but. It's more of a gut thing. I may jump on a Verdell at $6K. You may not see Verdell that cheap much longer.
Yeah, he's a good for
GPPs. 100% healthy.
Yeah,
definitely GPPs. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's kind of wrap up here with you and I both giving a couple of our main plays, our core plays. Maybe let's give 2 out here because. We don't want to give out all these lineups. And by the way, we mentioned earlier, go check out the playbook that's live right now from myself for this main slate. And then Pete has the night slate playbook that is currently live. So build those lineups. We'll be both in the Discord asking questions or answering questions. Hopefully it's not us asking the questions. We're going to be answering questions right after the lineup block coming up in about a half hour. And then, throughout the day, just offering little opinions on stuff, reactions to the games, as you guys have seen the last couple nights with college football going on. So, and then, obviously, before the night slate, we'll be trying to help you guys build those night slate lineups for sure. So go check out the playbooks. And by the way, just as a reminder, our college football DFS package, you can save 25% with code NCAA. Just go to dfsalarm.com/getcfb, and me and Pete are helping you guys all season. We'll be covering all those slates, so let's just dominate. So All right, let's get to our couple main plays here before we wrap. We got, I'll go to you. I'll go to you, Pete, first, and I'll give my couple.
Probably Bijan and Deuce.
Okay.
My two top plays. Problem is they're going to be chalky. I mean, they're probably both going to be over 30% owned, but I've been on them since day one. I'm going to stick with them. I'm leaning a little bit toward the Bama kid, the Bama receiver also. But Bijan Robinson and Deuce Vaughn are my top two plays this slate.
I like that. One of mine, I'll echo that. It's Bijan Robinson for sure. I think they're going to lean on the run here and just feed him carries in this game. And then Desmond Ridder, I'm going there for the high price quarterbacks. I'd rather have him over Rattler and Bryce Young. I think there's risk with Bryce Young in his first college start. Rattler, the blowout factor. I don't know how much he's really going to do, and he's way too expensive. But Ridder, I just know that Cincinnati is going to want to pound on Miami of Ohio because they're going to want to do that every single week this year to make sure they get in the college football playoff.
It just dawned on me who the team was with Jerome Ford. It was Georgia. He had the 97 yards. He didn't hit 100. But how many? I don't even remember the last player that actually ran for 100 yards against Georgia. I mean, that's a generational team. I just saw the kind of generational Georgia defense, and it was Georgia that Jerome Ford almost hit 100 for. So hey. I do like Jerome Ford today.
There you go. Yeah, that was in the last game of the year. Yep. Wow. All right. Well, there you go. Let's get Ford in there too. Then. All right. Well, Pete, it was awesome doing this with you. We'll be back next week doing the same thing and just helping you guys win. So yeah. Thanks, Pete.
Yeah. Good luck, guys. Thank you.
All right. Good luck, guys. We'll talk to you guys soon, and we'll see you in the Discord. See ya.